Hey guys, it's John Moore here again with the Texas College Football Show, and today we are going to break down the Rice Owls, who are playing in now it's the American Conference. I think it was the AAC. Now it's the American Conference. And joining me is Steve Helwick. Now, Steve actually covers Rice and Houston, so he's going to help me out. We'll do Houston a little bit later on. We're going to do Rice right now. Steve, tell us exactly what you do and down there. I know you're in the Houston area and you cover a lot of sports down there.
Yes, I've been covering the Rice Owls and Houston Cougars football since 2019, so both sides of the Bayou Bucket. This is the last year of the Bayou Bucket, so it'll be last time these crosstown rivals meet for the foreseeable future. I do that on SB Nation platforms for Underdog Dynasty. And just one other thing, if my setup looks weird right now, it's just because I had surgery, so I'm taking this call from my bed because I can't move right now.
That's all right. That means you're a gamer and you're setting up for this. And Steve, we're going to have you on again. There's going to be games this year. So every Monday, let me explain, guys. If this is your first show and you're a Rice fan and you're just now figuring out what I do, this is the Texas College Football Show. It covers all Division I FBS qualified schools in the state of Texas. I've always thought that the best football in the country is played in the state of Texas, whether at the college level or definitely the high school level, where most of the D1 prospects come out of Texas than any other state in the country. But, starting from the University of Texas, which is going to be ranked at the very top, all the way through Texas football, all the way in college altogether, I think is some great football being played. You're covering two schools down there in Houston. So that's what we're doing. Every week I'll count them down. I'll rank them from 13 down to 1, and then it'll shuffle every week after results. But right now we're doing preview shows. So I had to get some help from some guys that are experts on these teams. Steve, I really appreciate you jumping on here with me. I want to talk about the Rice Owls. They've got a new coach this year. So that puts him, we'll get into that in just a second, and you can do this with me. Have you got a chance to meet Coach Abell yet? Scott Abell is the new coach. And when you see this slide, guys, he is number 12 on my list. I counted him back down. The only reason Scott Abell's number 12 out of the 13 is because haven't seen anything really out of him. He's coming in. He's had some great success at Davidson, I believe he was at, in Washington and Lee, Division III, where he had some success, but now he's coming into a big D1 school. How about Coach Abell? What do you know about him and meeting him?
Yes, Scott Abel, he started, he's been the academic kind of coach. Like, Rice is an academic institution. That's where he's made his name. That's where he thrived. He did it at the D3 level at Washington and Lee in Virginia. Then he did it in the FCS level at Davidson. I know most people know about Davidson with Steph Curry, but that's also an academic institution just like Rice. And when you're coaching at some of those academic institutions, recruiting can be hard because you can't bring in everybody you want to bring in. You have a more selective pool of players. You have to get players that fit the academic requirements. Scott Abel's been able to navigate those challenges at his previous stops. And this is really his first time in Texas. He's recruited Texas guys in the past, but he's been a Virginia, North Carolina guy in the past. So it's a different scenery for him. But one thing that you have to know about Scott Abel is his signature is a spread option. He describes it as Chip Kelly's Oregon offense, kind of if you had a baby with it, with Nebraska's Tom Osborne offense. So there are a lot of concepts you'll see with like Liberty's spread option with Jamie Chadwell that you'll see in Scott Abel's offense. So he's going to install a new offense at Rice. And that was one reason Rice hired him, because athletic director Tommy McClellan really wanted a coach with a unique offensive philosophy, because Rice has only finished top 80 once since 2015 in scoring offense. So Rice has needed something offensively badly for a long time.
And, I'm glad I had you on. It's Scott Abel. I was saying Abell. I didn't know Scott well. So I get corrected, and that's why we're here. I'm excited. I am pulling for every Texas school. I want to see Rice compete in the AC. Obviously, because they're a Texas school, so I'm always going to pull for them. I always state my allegiance. First of all, I grew up a University of Texas fan, and my youngest son is attending UT this fall. He'll be a freshman. So I like the Texas Longhorns, but I like all football, and I love Texas college football. And so I'm going to be pulling. I remember when Rice was back in the Southwest Conference the old days. I'm a lot older than you. Steve, and I remember the old Southwest Conference days, and they always struggled a little bit. Yes, they have a higher academic standard. They're kind of known more for NCAA baseball, where they've had really good success on the baseball field. But I did this little chart, and guys, forgive me. I thought I'd sent all these out, and Steve hadn't seen this yet, but he'll probably confirm this with me. It's a coach's seat. And what they are, you're talking about hot seats on coaches. You've got 4 levels. You've got the hot seat, which is basically this year it's put up or else. You've got a warm seat, which maybe you haven't heard it yet, but there's grumblings behind you. You got a cool seat, which everybody pretty much likes you, but if things don't go well, it could really kind of warm up for you. And then a cold seat, everyone loves you. And I said Scott Abel's on the cold seat. It's first year. They brought him in. His job is safe. He's going to have a chance to build the program the way he wants to, especially with the success that he's had at Davidson and like you said, is William and Lee that he was at the D3 school. Would you agree he's safe in his job?
Absolutely. And Rice had their previous head coach, Mike Bloomgren. He was on for 7 seasons. While he didn't produce a winning season, Bloomgren bought a lot of time because Rice was steadily improving every year he was there. And Rice, to be honest, the expectations aren't super high at Rice because they haven't had a winning season since 2014. So any semblance of progress would be nice. I mean, last year I thought was one of the most talented Rice teams they've had in a long time. They had good wins. They beat a 10-3 Navy team, a 7-6 UTSA team, a 7-6 South Florida team, but the end result was 4-8. So Rice really needs to they really need to have some winning season, but I don't think it's going to be demanded right away. Scott Abel has to get the culture in place, instill some of his values into the program, and this offense really, the install of the offense is one thing that most people are going to be watching about this Rice Owls team, because going from a pro-style offense to a spread option offense in the course of one offseason without even a transfer portal-heavy class, because of Rice's standing as an academic institution, they keep a lot of their same guys from last year. So it's the same guys running that pro-style offense, which will be running this spread option, which I think is a unique dynamic of it.
Yeah, and we're going to talk in a second about quarterback because that's interesting you say that, but I want to get into that when we get to the offense. Let's recap last year real quick on some notable games. Rice was 4-8 overall. Obviously, Scott Abel wasn't there last year. The notable games are that I brought up. You can expand on this, or maybe even a loss that might have been notable to you, although I know they've struggled a little bit. Again, you just said them. The win at Navy, the win over UTSA, who's kind of solidified themselves as a really pretty good FBS school going there, and obviously the win at University of South Florida. Any other games of note last year that might, even a loss that might have stood out for you?
I would say the mid-October game against Tulane was crushing all of the American opponents throughout the season. They started 7-0 in American play until their Thanksgiving loss to Memphis. But the one team that kind of gave them some hiccups was Rice. That game was 10-10 in the fourth quarter. And I think the turnover battle in that game was 5-0 in favor of Tulane. So if Rice just didn't commit a ton of turnovers, the Owls defense, it was 5-0. The Owls defense had them that day. So that was an interesting game. And Tulane won 24-10, but one of that touchdown that sealed it was a defensive touchdown in the final few seconds of the game. So it was really a one-score game throughout the entire contest, which showed Rice had a good defense.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, and I on every one of these, I've done 13 of these. I've actually got you'll be 11-12. I got one more SMU. The SMU guy had to push till Monday. We're going to get him done. All of them talk about notable losses, especially from some of the schools that aren't predicted to do as well. You look at some of the wins or losses from last year that were close, that games they should have never been. And one of them, UTSA Texas State lost to ASU, Arizona State last year in a very close game out in Arizona. That was UTSA or Texas State was not predicted to go out there and hang with who ended up being in the college football playoffs. They barely, ASU barely beat them last year. So that's notable what you say with that Tulane game where they hung with them. 5 turnovers, 10-10 in the fourth quarter. Yeah, you're right. I mean, no turnovers. That could be a whole different ball game. Now, one thing we know that I've been trying to study on this and figure this out at the quarterback position. It sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong. So I've got a couple of names that I put on there. I had a list of the quarterbacks. I counted them down from 13 to 1. There are 3 schools that actually have quarterback battles that are going to kind of be going on. Rice is one of them. The ones I have are Chase Jenkins and A.J. Padgett. But I know there's another name kind of mixed in there. Drew DeValier, I believe is his name, out of Plano. Now, correct me. Everybody's got Chase pretty much penciled in. He was a starter a couple of years ago, and then did he switch over to a wide receiver position? And now he's kind of gone back. Explain what that was. And he might be perfect for this offense.
So Chase Jenkins was QB2 in the 2023 season behind JT Daniels. And when JT Daniels suffered a concussion against SMU, Jenkins was inserted in that game. And that was a really good SMU team. They were the AAC champions that year, pretty dominant, finished ranked at the end of the season, I think 11-3 to finish the year. And Chase Jenkins played pretty well in that game, 10 for 16, 85 yards. Kept Rice within striking distance. They only lost by 5 that game. But one other thing that Chase Jenkins offers is a semblance of mobility. And even when Daniels was playing quarterback at Rice, they would insert Chase Jenkins into the game just for some run-oriented packages for the quarterback. And you saw that in the 2023 East Carolina game. Still doesn't have a start under his belt, even though we saw him play in 2023. He only played 4 games, maintained that red shirt in his freshman year there. And then last year, he didn't really play at all. He kind of got a little more buried on the depth chart. Drew DeVilliers operated as the second quarterback behind E.J. Warner. Drew DeVilliers still on the roster, but with the offensive stylistic change, I think Chase Jenkins and his mobility are probably most suited for it. It looks like right now, and based on my conversations with Scott Abel, that Jenkins has a slight lead in the quarterback battle, but Drew DeVilliers would be the second guy, and the third guy would be late transfer addition. They brought in Lucas Shearhorn from Kennesaw State, which he threw 3 passes at Kennesaw State, and he's run option offenses more often. I think he ran option offense in high school, so he's a little more experienced in that regard. So I wouldn't be surprised. Most teams you see multiple quarterbacks throughout the season. Even Rice last year, E.J. Warner remained relatively healthy. We still saw a start out of Drew DeVilliers. So I would expect to see multiple quarterbacks this season. The one that we probably won't see is the one on the right side of your screen is A.J. Padgett. A.J. Padgett was working out at tight end on Sunday's practice that I attended. So it looks like A.J. Padgett might be in for a position change. Nothing's finalized, nothing's formal yet, but he's not wearing that green jersey. He's out there working in tight end reps right now.
Hey, and big kid. He's out of Frisco Reedy, a 6'3", 200. I mean, that's a the atypical size, and you would think. I noticed a big kid like that, and now that you're talking about more of a run option kind of an offense, he's probably not a guy fleet of foot that can run that option, and that's kind of everything I'm reading about. That is why Chase Jenkins seems to kind of be the leader in the clubhouse, an old golf term there, going in from what I'm hearing. Interesting. I'm so glad I have you on here because I'm going to follow every one of these schools close this year, and I love having this info. And don't worry, Steve, when we get off the air, I'm going to get your cell phone. I'll be texting this year about, hey, what's up when I see it's some sort of change or whatever, and you can go, oh, yeah, this guy is doing that, because I just like to have the info that I can go every week. But that's interesting. Now, on the offense, let's talk some other things on the offense I want to talk about. So who are the impact or returning starters or returning players? I don't want to get into transfer portal, although you said there wasn't a huge transfer portal. We'll talk about that in a minute, along with recruiting. Who's coming back on the offense, whether they're a starter or someone that played a lot, that's going to be impactful next year?
First name I would point out is Quentin Jackson, the running back. Davidson led the FCS in rushing last year under Scott Abel. These guys are going to be running a lot. That's the bread and butter of their offense. Quentin Jackson better get used to running back one opportunities because he's going to have a lot of carries this year. He operated as the second fiddle last year behind Dean Connors, who transferred to Houston. Dean Connors, speedy back, tremendous receiving back, one of the more versatile guys in the country. But when Quentin Jackson did have his moments, he was pretty good. He averaged, I think it was over 5 yards per carry last year. So he was, I'm getting the exact number right now, 5.7 yards per carry last year. I thought he did pretty well in his limited reps, had 275 yards and a touchdown on the season. And also, Quentin Jackson's on the Paul Hornung Award watch list for most versatile player in the country, because not only did he score as a rusher and a receiver last year, but he scored as a kick returner in that UConn game, showing his speed on special teams as well. So I think Quentin Jackson is one impact player to watch on the offense. Another one would just be David Stickle on the offensive line. He's a starting center there. offensive line is going to look a little more different in this spread option offense. There's going to be a lot more guys pulling. There's going to be a lot more unique blocking schemes, somewhat of what you see with Army and Navy, except this is going to be more out of the gun. The offense is called the Rice gun choice, so it'll be a lot of option out of the shotgun, and I think some of the blocking schemes will be interesting. David Stickle, former Florida State transfer, he started all 12 games at center last year. He is the number one name to watch on that Rice offensive line.
Okay, so let's move over then to the defensive side of the ball and talk about that for a second. Who coming back on the defense again in the same situation, either returning starter or an impactful person player that played a lot that's probably going to step in and start this year, you think, coming back?
Yeah, I'll give two names here. On the defensive line, there's Blake Banish. He's 6'3", over 340 pounds as a defensive tackle. He just has a commanding presence in the middle. A lot of times you need multiple guys to block him. Blake Banish has been mainly a backup through his time at Rice, but every time he comes in, he's always been a rotation guy. He's really impactful, just in short bursts, just provides great play, very disruptive. He had 42 tackles, which is a lot for an interior lineman last year, in addition to 4 tackles for loss. He had 10 in the Memphis game alone, 10 tackles in a game for a defensive tackle, especially at 340 pounds. Pretty ridiculous. So Blake Banish's athleticism is pretty insane. Rice has also fielded a lot of good linebackers recently. They were very senior-heavy linebacker-led team last year with Josh Piercy, Myron Morrison in that bunch. And there's a new name that stepped up among them last year that should be the star of the defense this year, and that's Ty Morris. Ty Morris at the outside linebacker position, he has a pretty good semblance of speed on the outside. He had 56 tackles to rank second on the team last year, 8 tackles for loss to rank second on the team. He was the only Rice Owl with 4 sacks last year. So Ty Morris, good pass rushing linebacker, good run stopper. I think he'll be the name to watch on the defense. And one thing to know about this Rice defense is the scheme remains relatively the same, because even though they lost their defensive coordinator, Brian Smith, to Temple, they promoted their linebackers coach, John Kay, who is a high school football coaching legend in the state of Texas. He was promoted to the defensive coordinator, which got a lot of these Rice guys on defense to stay. So Rice's defense looks pretty similar to last year, running a lot of the same schemes.
You know, it's interesting. Ty Morris and Quentin Jackson, that was his name,
Yeah.
right? It's funny because I've already got stuff together. I'm doing an all Texas first and second team for offense and for defense. And my rule is it's like the major. I cover baseball for the Texas Rangers, so I'm doing it like the MLB All-Star game in this. Every school has to have someone represented. And so, and when digging into Rice, there's a few names there I was digging into, and let's just say those names might be popping up on this list. And it's funny you brought them up, and so I feel confirmation in my homework with you giving me some names there. I'm going, okay, I know that name because I've been looking up some stuff on him. That's not going to come out to a little while later, but you're having to do homework on some schools you don't know, which makes you such a blessing to me because you are really hitting me full of some stuff here. Now, the last thing we're going to do on this before I do my prediction for the season, we're going to take a look at the schedule that's coming. Oh, no. Before we do that, let's talk about any transfers or recruits that are coming in that you think have a chance to hit the ground running, maybe a transfer or two that should get some starting playing or some significant playing time, or some recruits that might see the field as a freshman that look promising, and maybe you see it out there in practice or something, they look like they can help.
Yeah, the one name that definitely will see a lot of time as a transfer is Aaron Turner. He's a wide receiver, but he's going to go under the position of slot in this spread option offense, running a lot of jet sweeps. You'll see him down the field. In this offense, I think you can expect the receivers to average like 16, 17 yards of reception, kind of like you see at Army and Navy, and even at Coastal Carolina under Jamie Chadwell, and then Liberty under Jamie Chadwell. So I think that Aaron Turner could be one of those guys that's a deep threat and also excels with the jet sweeps. We saw him at UConn and Cincinnati. In 2022, he was UConn's by far their leading receiver, had 57 catches over 500 yards that year. He got a little buried on the depth chart at Cincinnati, but now back at Rice, I feel like he should be a feature skill position player in this offense. Always look, one thing you have to look at fall camp, if the guy's wearing a jersey number 1 and he just transferred in, pretty promising for him. So Aaron Turner's rocking that number 1 jersey. I think he's going to be one of the stars of this offense this year. Defensively, there aren't too many transfers that I can guarantee are getting day
Yeah.
one starting time. Max Lofi from Wisconsin at the cornerback position is one name because Rice lost their cornerbacks from last year. Said they were a pretty senior heavy team, getting a lot of guys with the COVID extra red shirts. And then one other transfer I would just point that could be a day one starter, Sean Sullivan. He was offensive tackle at Yale, another academic institution of the
Yes.
FCS. And I think Sean Sullivan could see some time at a starting guard or tackle position. Scott Abel's been rotating the linemen, making them play all 5 roles throughout spring to make them understand, get a grip on this offense. So we could see Sullivan at guard. We could see him at tackle. We've seen him at both at practice, and I think he's going to be one of the starters when Rice rolls out to Louisiana on week 1.
Any freshmen you think that might get on the field at all?
I'm not sure if any freshmen are going to be any day one starters, but just an interesting freshman to name on the roster, a name some people might be familiar with, Patrick Creighton Jr. If you
Oh,
remember
wow.
Patrick
Played for the
Creighton with the
Cowboys.
Cowboys, yes. Patrick Creighton Jr. is one of the backup quarterbacks in this Rice offense. So maybe a few years from now, that's a name that we could be seeing running this option offense.
Okay, let's look at the schedule. I've got my predictions blacked out right now, so we can kind of look at some highlight games. What we think that they will do. Of course, they open on August 30th at Louisiana. Looking through that, what would you say, Steve, are kind of the key games to watch for? And that's a week that's going to be exciting, or there could be whether upsets or they should win. What are some of those key games you see in this schedule?
First game's always going to be big because it's our first exposure to Scott Abel and the spread option offense. Louisiana's opening, I think, a new renovated stadium this year, so that will be an interesting opener at Louisiana, who was the Sun Belt runner-up last year. Should be a tough game for Rice, but we'll see if Rice can have a shot at it. Week 2 is going to be huge because, as I mentioned earlier, this is the last Bayou bucket. Because Houston's joining the Big 12, they have less schedule flexibility. Houston's not going to schedule Rice every year like they had been. And this Bayou bucket is at Rice Stadium. Last time they played at Rice Stadium in 2023, Rice upset Houston in a 43-41 double overtime thriller. So that was a really fun game there. They were up 28-0. Then Houston scores 35 unanswered points, but Rice ties it up, and then they win it in double overtime. So that was a thrilling Bayou bucket there. Gonna miss having that rivalry. Hopefully each school, which has pretty new athletic directors, hopefully they can resolve that, because I would love to see the Bayou bucket play every year. I think the 2 crosstown teams playing every year is good. So that's going to come with some extra emotion on both sides. Houston's the current owner of the bucket. Some other games I would point to: the American opener on Thursday, September 18th at Charlotte, because that game is on main ESPN network. That's 2 first-year coaches, Tim Albin and Charlotte. He comes over from Ohio after winning the MAC championship there. Then Scott Abel with Rice. That game's a primetime ESPN. Rice has struggled a lot with Charlotte recently. Charlotte's a team that Rice is almost favored over every single year, and Charlotte always sneaks out the win. Last year, Rice missed a game-winning field goal at the Horn to lose to Charlotte. They had a 10-point lead in the second half of that game. So that's a game Rice would like to get revenge at Jerry Richardson Stadium. Any other games I would look at? The Navy game, Rice did beat Navy last year, which was pretty interesting. That was after like a whole day of weather delays. It was crazy. Then I would just point to, I think the Halloween game at Memphis could be an interesting one. That's a home game. Memphis has a lot of question marks this year because Memphis was a very senior-heavy team last year, and this year they're all transfers. You look at Memphis's 2 deep, so many transfers throughout the roster, including transfer quarterback Brendan Lewis, who's expected to win the starting job. No more Seth Hennigan there. So this is going to be a difficult season to understand what Memphis is right away because it's just so many moving parts. Last game I would point to is the North Texas game as Rice's senior day. It's that time of the year. I mean, they could be vying for bowl eligibility in a best case scenario, it feels like, Rice this year, and trying to capture that 6th win in late November. So that's one thing to watch. And they could also prevent teams from doing the same thing. Rice has got some wins last year. I said they got the Navy and South Florida wins late in the season under their interim head coach. So we'll see how Rice looks in November and if the spread option's a more finished product by then. I think that North Texas game could be a fun game because North Texas's defense has not been good over the past the past 5 years. They've had a rough defense, so we can see if Rice's offense can have a breakout game then.
Yep. And I'm saying yep because I had on a North Texas guy, and he's told me that has been their Achilles heel is their defense in doing that. So, what is your best case and worst case scenario? Best case scenario on the record and worst case scenario.
Best case scenario on the record is probably they can hit 6 wins for the first time since they hit 6 wins 2 seasons ago. So they haven't had a winning record since 2014. So the best case scenario would be they get 6 wins. They can win their bowl game to get 7-6, I would say, in year one. It's tough. It's year one. The program hasn't Scott Abel hasn't got his recruits yet and all of that. So I think expecting a lot of winning out of the gate may not be what happens, but it could. And then just a worst case scenario is Rice beats Prairie View, maybe wins another game, and that's it for the rest of the season.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but I got to be honest with you, even in a scenario like that, you can't look at Scott Abel, and as long as you see improvement on that, I always revert back to my reference is Steve Sarkisian when he first got to Texas that first year. He went 5-7. I wasn't a big fan of the hire, and then he comes in. But I remember in that Oklahoma game, ironically, that they lost. You saw something in that offense that they did, and you realized, you know what? He just doesn't have the defensive guys yet. But, man, that offense is something different I haven't seen at Texas in a while. And you thought, well, maybe this is something that can happen. And, of course, he's improved on it every year. You want to see excitement within the team and all of that. Here's where I went with it. You can look at me and see if you agree. If not, I ended up with 4-8 in my prediction. Now, I didn't just wing it out there. I went in and looked at where I thought they were predicted to win and lose. Some of them were toss-ups, and I kind of split the difference on those. I got them going 4-8. There's also some games in there that I think could easily switch from a win to a loss and switch from a loss to a win. Navy's an example. You've already said they beat Navy last year. That could turn around. That would make them 5-7 right there. Where do you see a chance to maybe turn that into 6 wins? Or do you disagree with some of the losses I have? You think that's definitely a win, and maybe some of the wins I have might be a loss. What do you see there?
I don't think you can expect UConn to do this every year, but I think a lot of people forgot that UConn went 9-4 last year.
Yeah.
And that was one non-conference loss Rice had. But yeah, I mean, UAB and Charlotte are some of your most winnable conference games, so I would agree with that. Both those teams have struggled a lot lately with the transition from the CUSA to the American. Charlotte's only had one winning season ever in 2019, and then UAB just hasn't been able to do it under Dilfer since they've moved to the American Conference. So I would say that looks reasonable. 9-13 absolutely has to be a win. Rice has usually put away their FCS teams pretty convincingly in recent years. So I would expect September 13th to probably be the first win of the season for Rice, but I'm not saying that they couldn't go into Louisiana and at least give the Cajuns a challenge. That would be
awesome.
Interesting to see how that one unfolds.
Hey, the first game of the season can start, they're not expected to win, but let's say they sneak a win out of Louisiana. That can start something. That can roll into some confidence. You know that as well as anybody. And that could really turn into something. Well, this has been fantastic. So you don't have much disagreement there. You're kind of where I was on that. Let's get you out of here. We're going to come back and do a Houston one later. But, hey, Steve, I can't tell you how much I'm learning here about Rice football. I can't wait to get into the Houston one. But we're going to end this one, guys. For Steve Helwick, I'm John Moore. And until we do another one, we'll see you at the gridiron.